Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into the Hunt County real estate scene. We've got the latest numbers for April 2025, and we're going to put them right alongside April 2024.
Yeah, using the new Hunt County Real Estate Market Report, April 2025. It's always interesting to see the year-over-year changes.
Exactly. So the big question is, what are the main trends popping up? And, what does it all mean for you, whether you're thinking of buying, selling, or maybe just watching the market?
Good question. Let's get into it.
Okay, so starting with overall sales.
Yeah.
What did the report show there?
Well, right off the bat, we see a kind of a slight cooling. There were 149 residential sales this April,
Right.
compared to 157 back in April 2024. So yeah, that's a dip of about 5.1%.
5.1%. Not massive, but noticeable. So fewer homes actually sold compared to last year.
Exactly. Suggests maybe things aren't quite as frenzied as they were a year ago. Could be fewer listings, could be buyers pulling back a little.
Yeah.
The report doesn't really say why, but it's a definite shift.
Interesting. Okay, so slightly fewer transactions.
Yeah.
But what about prices? Because that's, what everyone asks about.
Right, and that's where it gets interesting because despite fewer sales, prices hold up pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the average sales price hit $334,429 this April. That's actually up 3% from $324,528 last April.
Wow. Okay, so average price up. What about the median? Sometimes that tells a slightly different story.
It does, but it also saw a small increase. The median price was $287,490 this April, compared to $285,650 last year. So just a tiny bump, like 0.6%.
Okay, so average up noticeably, median up just a fraction. Prices are resilient then.
Seems that way. Even with fewer deals happening, the underlying value, it seems pretty stable. Maybe that fundamental demand in Hunt County is still keeping prices supported.
It makes sense. Okay, here's another interesting one. Days on market. How long are homes sitting?
Yeah, that's definitely shifted. Homes took longer to sell this April. The average was 76 days.
76 days. And last year?
It was 66 days in April 2024. So that's, a 15.2% increase. Quite a jump.
10 extra days on average. So what does that mean for people out there?
Well, for buyers, it could be good news, right?
Yeah.
More time, maybe less pressure, a bit more room to negotiate, potentially.
Right, you don't have to jump on the first thing you see.
Exactly. And for sellers, it probably means you need to be a bit more strategic. Pricing it right, making sure the home shows well, becomes even more critical when buyers have more time and options.
And it looks like sellers are maybe reacting to that. The report mentions seller concessions.
It does. We saw a slight increase in the number of sales that included concessions. 89 this April versus 85 last April.
Okay, so more sellers shipping in.
But interestingly, the average amount they chipped in actually went down a tiny bit. It was $9,039 this year, down from $9,181 last year, a small drop, like 1.5%.
Huh. So more deals have concessions, but the average concession is slightly less.
Yeah, it suggests the sellers are, willing to sweeten the pot to get the deal done, especially if houses are sitting a bit longer. But maybe they're being a bit more careful about exactly how much they give. It feels like an adjustment to the current pace.
Right, calibrating their incentives.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about new construction? That's always a big factor here.
Oh, absolutely. And that part of the market saw some pretty significant growth. New home sales jumped 25%.
25%? Wow.
Yeah, 60 new homes sold this April compared to 48 last April. So builders were definitely active, or buyers were really leaning towards new builds.
And the prices for those new homes?
Okay, so the average price for a new home went up 4.7% to about $344,960.
Okay.
But the median price actually decreased slightly by 1.4%, down to $296,740.
Hold on. Average up, median down. How does that work?
Well, it could mean there's a wider range of new homes being sold, maybe more really high-end new builds sold, pulling the average up. While the price for the sort of middle-of-the-road new home actually dipped a tiny bit, so more variety in the new construction market, perhaps.
That makes sense. And did new homes also take longer to sell, like the resale market?
They did, even more so, actually. Average days on market for new construction went from 79 days last April up to 96 days this April.
96 days. Wow.
Yeah, that's a 21.5% increase. So buyers are taking their time there, too.
And are builders offering concessions more often as well?
Definitely. A big jump there. 47 of the new home sales this April had seller contributions, compared to only 33 last year. That's like a 42% increase in the number of deals with incentives.
Okay, big jump in usage.
Yeah.
But the dollar amount?
Similar to the overall market, the average contribution amount for new homes actually dipped a bit, down about 5.9% from roughly $11,178 last year to $10,520 this year.
So builders are using incentives much more frequently to move inventory, especially with homes sitting longer, but maybe reining in the average amount slightly.
Exactly. It paints a picture of builders being active, putting more homes out there, but also needing to be more aggressive with incentives to close deals in this slightly slower paced environment.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together then. What's the big picture for Hunt County in April 2025?
Well, it looks like a market that's, maybe catching its breath a little. Sales volume is down slightly,
Right, bit cooler.
but prices are surprisingly resilient. They're holding firm, even increasing a bit.
Yeah, especially that average price.
And new construction is really active, but builders are definitely feeling the need to offer more incentives as those homes are taking longer to sell.
So for you, the listener, if you're a buyer, it sounds like maybe a bit more time, potentially more choices, maybe a little more negotiating power than last year.
Yeah, seems that way. The increased days on market suggest less urgency.
And for sellers, still getting good prices, it seems, but maybe needing to be more patient and strategic about pricing and maybe concessions.
I think that's fair. It's not a bad market for sellers by any means. Values are strong. But it's not quite perhaps the frenzy of a year or two ago. It requires a bit more navigation.
It definitely feels like a market in transition, finding a new balance.
hmm Still strong fundamentals, just a different pace.
So thinking about all these shifts, the slightly slower sales, the strong prices, the longer market times, the active new builds with incentives, here's something to consider. What opportunities or maybe what challenges do you see coming up in this Hunt County market as it keeps evolving? Definitely something to think about.